Sorry, I wasn't expecting
say?
that.
What did they say?
Little groaning notes, like an animal. Oh my goodness. It might be fun actually for you to see these
It
as
would
well.
be really good. Should I just stand here?
This Is Happening was commissioned by PRiSM at RNCM with Kathryn Williams and Sonia Allori, who is a Drake music artist. Drake Music are an amazing organisation across England and Wales, and they work with professional disabled artists to promote accessible ways of working, accessible musical instruments, and advocating for disability in music. The partnership was originally proposed and set up by Lucy Hale, who all this work is dedicated to. She wrote funding applications and proposals for the project, so we have her to thank for all of this. So this piece is called This Is Happening. The title is affirming that all these different perceptions of reality that we all have, they are really happening to the people experiencing them. So it's particularly about psychosis and hearing impairments, hearing different things. Psychosis is a symptom in which you hear, see, believe, feel things that other people can't. And it's kind of like an alternate version of reality. It's normally associated with other mental health conditions like bipolar and schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. But lots of people experience psychosis like if they take drugs or if they're sleep deprived or if they haven't eaten or drunk enough. Like, it's actually a very common experience. I think everyone's had that experience where they could have sworn their phone vibrated and it didn't. Like, they're just versions of reality. It's just been a really good opportunity for me to explore my own experiences and also, you know, get the word out that it's not what everyone assumes it is. The instrumentation is for flute and electronic wind instrument, or EWI, which is a MIDI-controlled wind instrument. Kathryn Williams playing the flute and Sonia Allori is playing the EWI. And it was composed specifically for these performers in this combination. I actually thought bringing the two musicians together would be really wonderful because they have very different but also shared experiences, especially as being wind players.
I play a few instruments, all wind instruments. The one that I'm using for this project is EWI, or electronic wind instrument, and I play it because it allows me to be able to play more complex patterns and music because it's lighter to hold. And it takes less pressure from your mouth position or embouchure around the reed. And also because I've moved into playing a lot more electroacoustic music, the EWI is fantastic, and I'm still learning and still have so much to learn about it. During the past few years, I've been adapting my creative practice in different ways as a way of continuing to be creative with increasing disability. One of the main changes is using creative captioners to help me to improvise and collaborate, firstly online during the pandemic, and now moving that process into the room and in person. This happens as follows. The sounds and music by other musicians are audio described for me in a stream of consciousness descriptive prose, and I then respond to this on my instrument. I'm curious to know what it's like for a hearing musician working with this process for the first time.
There's a lot to unpack from what just happened in the rehearsal, from how she plays her instrument and the way that she uses her breathing and her articulation, and how open she is about everything that she's doing, and an amazing sense of humor. I think that it's, I feel like it's a space where I can really openly say what's working for me and what might not be, and that's just really warmly accepted in the room.
I wrote Kathryn a part first. And this was because she, for various reasons, couldn't be live at the performance. So we had to pre-record her part. So I wrote her part first. And this was kind of like a game of telephone, where I wrote Kathryn a score that was made up of tech scores and graphic scores for her to record and then send to me for me to arrange. And then I would send that arrangement of the flute part to Sonia and the creative captioners. The creative captioners would audio describe Kathryn's part and send that to Sonia for Sonia to live perform with. So it's been this, what the really interesting part is that Sonia hasn't seen Kathryn's score. So she's only getting this interpretation, the creative captioner's interpretation of the flute part.
I find this process interesting because it's familiar to me and I've used it in a number of projects. So it's actually gotten to be, I think in each project that I'm able to use this process, we finesse it a little more perhaps each time. But also in general, our process for this project has been affected by lots of different things in trying to get it together towards a final stage. It could so easily have faltered and not happened, but the resilience and flexibility to all of the circumstances by everyone, I think shows the real strength of collective human creative endeavour.
The process writing the piece has been really enjoyable and I hope really inclusive and accessible to everyone involved, and it's been really eye-opening for me to work with people who have differing access requirements than I do. So I've learned a lot, and what I really hope will come out of it, like quite specifically, I'd really like for people to be more aware of creative captions, that this is a technology that's available to describe music for people with hearing impairments and deafness. It's really important we commission work specifically ring-fenced for disabled performers because there's a huge amount of ableism and discrimination that happens, and there's not enough access out there for disabled musicians. My work is looking at hopefully changing that by emphasising how accessibility can be baked into the creative process, baked into pieces, no matter what the medium is, and celebrating voices of disabled performers.
For a very long time, my health is something that I felt like I had to manage despite what I was doing creatively. It was something that I had to hide sometimes or make contingencies for in my flute playing. And I think that reflecting on that, a lot of that comes down to the ableism that's often inherent in classical music training, where you have to deliver the thing on the page despite what your body is telling you to do. And for me, a lot of that problem lay in how long phrases were and how long breathing needed to last and the volume of breathing that was necessary for me to do that and the amount of time it would take to breathe. So it wasn't really until I required a surgical operation to help me with my respiratory conditions that I started to really think that I could perhaps approach my work with a bit more curiosity and compassion. And that's what led me to commissioning pieces that are one breath long, which is to just take this tiny little idea of, well, if the phrases are always too long for me, then what if a piece of music was just one breath long and it's just my piece of music? And it was just a tiny little thought I had when I think I was washing up. And it's led to something I just could never have imagined. It's opened up so many collaborative relationships and led to a lot of new work that would have never come about otherwise. So I think going forward, it's really just trying to foreground my work with a curiosity and compassion.
A huge amount of venues in this country do not have step-free stages, so a venue may have thought about wheelchair or mobility access for the audiences, but they'll still have a raised stage that's really difficult to access as a wheelchair user. And I know people who have been turned away from venues because they're using a wheelchair, and that's not acceptable. And it would put you off. It would make your life difficult, and it's your career that is being given obstacles that nobody else is being given. Also, for things like for hearing impairments and visual impairments, we don't think enough about adapting scores.
There isn't a one-size-fits-all for all of the different disabilities and situations. The best collaborations are where a little time is taken at the beginning of the project to work out these practicalities, because then you can all focus on the fun, creative bit.
This piece is largely about psychosis, and my biggest hope when I first started this piece was that people understood what psychosis can be and kind of demystifying it, destigmatizing it, and making it into this really artistic, enjoyable sound world experience that isn't scary or intimidating or mysterious. And yeah, just advocating, I want this piece to be a piece of activism for people living with disabilities, differences, psychosis, hearing impairments, all of those things.